At 62, I never thought I'd find myself driving alone at 11:00 p.m. through unfamiliar streets, my hands trembling on the wheel and my heart racing as though it might leap from my chest. This all began 3 hours earlier when I passed the corporate high-rise where Elijah Vance had worked for 25 years. The building was dark, the parking garage empty, and a notice on the front door announced that the offices were closed for renovations starting at 6 p.m. My first thought was that I had the wrong building, but no, there it was, the company's sleek logo, taunting me in the darkness. I dialed his number with shaking fingers. "How's the project coming, my love?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady and casual, like the devoted wife I'd been for 4 decades. His response was quick, practiced, and flawless in its deceit. "Super busy here, Simone. Can't talk right now. The Tokyo project has us all stretched thin. Don't wait up for me, dear." And then I heard it. Soft moans, muffled laughter. The unmistakable sounds of intimacy I thought I knew so well. My stomach turned, but my mind, which had been dormant for so long, snapped to attention with terrifying clarity. The family GPS app, something I had insisted we install after Elijah's car accident last year, became my guide to the truth. The blue dot marking his silver Mercedes-Benz S-Class was flashing in an upscale neighborhood about 40 minutes from home, a part of Atlanta I'd never been to with him. Every mile I drove felt like I was peeling away layers of myself, revealing something raw and painful beneath. The neighborhood was stunning, too perfect. Craftsman-style homes with pristine lawns, antique streetlights casting a warm glow on the sidewalks. It was the kind of place where happy families lived their perfect lives. Elijah's car was parked in front of a deep cobalt blue 2-story house, hydrangeas framing the porch, a wooden swing rocking gently. A light burned on the second floor, and shadows moved behind lace curtains that looked straight out of a decorator's magazine. I parked 3 houses down, watching in silence. My mind struggled to piece things together, but it was like trying to assemble a puzzle with mismatched pieces. This wasn't a colleague's house. It wasn't a hotel or some anonymous apartment for a secret affair. It was a home. A mailbox painted with sunflowers, a welcome mat reading, "Stanton Family." Then I saw her, not a young woman, as I'd feared, but someone in her mid-40s, peeking out the second-floor window. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun, and she wore a blue silk robe, the same one Elijah had given me for our last anniversary, though mine was a rich wine red. She looked down the street with a satisfied expression that stung more than any gesture of passion ever could. My phone buzzed. A text from Elijah. "Leaving the office now, love. Don't wait up. Grab dinner without me." The lie was so blatant it almost seemed absurd. Almost. I checked my watch. 11:43 p.m. How many nights had I spent alone, eating and sleeping by myself while he built this hidden life? A boy, about 10 years old, appeared next to the woman in the window. He had dark, wavy hair, just like Elijah's, and the same tilt of his head when something piqued his interest. She embraced him, and they both disappeared from view, probably heading to bed in their perfect home. Elijah's home, my husband. The words felt alien now, floating in my mind like unfamiliar objects. 40 years of marriage, 2 grown children, 3 grandchildren. What had it all been built on? Lies, half-truths, a masterful performance. Physical pain gripped me then, so sharp I thought I might be having a heart attack. I woke in my car at 5:47 a.m., stiff-necked and with swollen eyes. The blue house was still there, proof that it hadn't been a nightmare. Elijah's Mercedes was gone. I drove home on autopilot, the familiar roads and traffic lights etched into my muscle memory after decades of living in the same place. I arrived just as Elijah walked through the front door, briefcase in one hand, a box of donuts in the other. My favorite. "Morning, my love," he said, kissing my cheek with his usual ease. "I brought your favorites, Boston creams. I know I shouldn't have worked all night, but you know how these international projects are." His performance was flawless. If I hadn't seen what I had seen, if I hadn't known what I knew, I would have believed every word. How many years had he spent perfecting this theater? How many mornings had he walked through that door with lies wrapped in bakery paper? How thoughtful. I replied, surprised at how normal my voice sounded. Why don't you shower while I make the coffee? He hummed a tune, the same one he always whistled when in a good mood. The same melody I'd heard for 4 decades, never knowing it meant he'd spent the night with another family. While he showered, I checked his briefcase. I had perfected the art of being a discreet wife, or so I thought. I found the usual work documents, a tablet, company pens. But then I found something new, a second phone, one I'd never seen before. Hidden in a compartment I didn't know existed, the screen showed several missed calls and a text. Daddy, don't forget my soccer game Saturday. Mommy says you promised to come. Love you, Jalen. Another woman. Another son of Elijah's. The picture suddenly came into focus. The frequent business trips. The weekend work that took him away. The calls he answered in the yard. Out of earshot. The credit card purchases that never made it home. I had been so stupid. So trusting. So blind. But no, I corrected myself. I hadn't been stupid. I had been a wife who trusted her husband. I had chosen to believe. I had chosen not to see because the alternative was unimaginable. I remembered moments now, painful and clear, like that time 15 years ago, when I found a jeweler's receipt in his pocket. It's for my boss's secretary's birthday. He'd said, you know how he is, always sending me to do his personal shopping. I had believed him. Or 10 years ago when our daughter, Amara, told me she'd seen Dad at an upscale mall with a woman and a child. Must be a colleague's sister, I'd replied. Dad's always helping people. Amara was 15 then. The boy in the window last night would be about 10. The math was cruel in its precision. I heard Elijah turn off the shower and I replaced everything exactly as I had found it. I had learned much about deception in the past few hours. When he emerged, damp-haired and smelling of the cologne I'd bought him every Christmas, I had the coffee poured and the donuts ready. Sleep well? He asked, biting into a donut while reading the news on his iPad. Like always, I lied. And did you get any rest at the office? I asked. Slept a couple of hours on the sofa in the conference room. He replied, not looking up. Daryl was snoring like a bear in the next office. Daryl. I suddenly remembered that Daryl, Elijah's supposed partner on those late-night projects, had retired 6 months ago. We had even celebrated it with a dinner where Elijah gave a heartfelt speech about teamwork and loyalty. The irony made me sick. Simone, are you all right? You look pale, Elijah asked, touching my forehead with concern that almost seemed genuine. I waited 3 days before going back. 3 days during which I perfected my own performance. Smiling at the right moments, responding to his lies as expected, even making love to him one night, while imagining the other woman in my place. Elijah suspected nothing. After all, I had been predictable for 40 years. Simone, the devoted wife. Simone, the perfect mother. Simone, the fool. This time I was ready. I dressed in clothes I would never normally wear. Jeans and a hooded sweatshirt bought with cash. Big sunglasses. My hair tucked under a baseball cap. I looked like another person. Maybe I was. The old Simone had died in that car 3 nights ago. I arrived at the Blue House at 2:00 in the afternoon, knowing Elijah was definitely at his office. The real one this time. I had checked by calling his direct extension. The neighborhood was quiet, with only the occasional bark of a dog or the sound of a landscaper's tools. I parked on the same street but closer this time. I needed to see. I needed to understand. The woman, Candace, came out at 2:30. My heart nearly stopped, not because of her, but because of what she carried. A baby in a front carrier. A baby no more than 6 months old. The mathematics of betrayal had just become more complicated. It wasn't only the 10-year-old boy. How long had Elijah been building this family? I followed her on foot as she walked through the neighborhood, keeping a careful distance, pretending to look at my phone whenever she stopped. She entered a small artisanal coffee shop, one of those cozy places with sidewalk tables and hanging plants. I sat far away, ordering a coffee I had no intention of drinking. Candace met 2 other women there, both with babies. They chatted about diapers, sleepless nights, the exhaustion of motherhood. Then one of them said something that froze my blood. "Candace, you're so lucky Marcus is so involved. Not all husbands are that dedicated." Marcus. My Elijah was Marcus in this life. Candace laughed, adjusting the baby. "Yes, though with his work schedule it's hard. Sometimes he has to travel for business 3 or 4 days. But he always makes up for it when he's back. He's a wonderful father. The business trips. The 3 or 4 days he was supposedly away for work, those were when he came back to me, to his other life, to his other family. We were shifts on his elaborate calendar of deceit. I wondered if he kept a spreadsheet somewhere, tracking names, dates, and stories, so he wouldn't mix them up. "And how's Jalen doing with the new baby?" one of the women asked. "Jealous at first," Candace replied. "But Marcus has been amazing. He bought him a new baseball glove, and they spend Saturday afternoons together while I rest with the baby." Saturday afternoons, the same Saturday seminars, Elijah never missed. Another piece of the puzzle locked into place with nauseating precision. I got up to leave, but as I passed their table, Candace pulled out her phone to show photos. I couldn't help but glance. There was Elijah, my Elijah, in a family photo on a beach in Turks and Caicos, tanned and smiling, carrying the boy on his shoulders while a pregnant Candace stood beside him. I recognized the resort. It was the same one where Elijah had attended a corporate retreat the previous year. I stumbled out of the coffee shop. On my way back to the car, I passed a park filled with children. I froze when I heard a familiar voice. "That's it, champ. Kick harder!" It was Elijah. My Elijah, supposedly in a meeting with Japanese investors, was coaching a youth soccer team. Jalen, the boy from the window, ran toward him with a smile that mirrored his father's. I watched for 20 minutes. This man I thought I knew better than myself. There he was, energetic, attentive, fully present. The father he had once been with our children, only now even more alive. It wasn't an act. It was real. A father loving his son. Who was the real Elijah then? The man who ate breakfast with me every morning? Or the one coaching soccer on Wednesday afternoons? The one who made love to me on Sundays? Or the one taking another family to the beach? Did the real Elijah even exist? Or just perfectly crafted versions for each audience? My phone rang. It was him. "Hey, love. Meeting finished early. Do you want me to pick something up for dinner?" I looked across the park, where he was still shouting instructions to the team. "That would be perfect, darling. Bring some wine. The Napa Valley Cabernet we like." "I know the one. I love you, Simone." "I love you too," I said, the words turning to ash in my mouth. That night, as Elijah slept peacefully beside me, his breathing calm, like a man without guilt, I got up and went to the bathroom. I looked at myself in the mirror for a long time, tracing every line, every mark that time had left on my face. 62 years old, 40 of them devoted to a man who had built a double life with the precision of a Swiss watchmaker. The tears came, silent at first, then breaking into muffled sobs I had to stifle with a towel so I wouldn't wake him. I wasn't crying only for the betrayal. I was crying for the woman in the mirror. Who was I without him? Who had Simone been before she became Mrs. Elijah Vance? The memories of my youth felt like they belonged to someone else. The girl who wanted to be a painter, who had won a scholarship to study in Paris, who gave it up because Elijah convinced her that starting a family was more important. "The art will always be there," he'd said, smiling that smile that always disarmed me. But the time for children won't, and I had believed him. I had packed away my brushes, traded canvases for diapers, galleries for parent-teacher meetings. I never regretted my children. Amara and Jamal were my greatest joy. But Simone the artist had vanished, absorbed into Simone the wife. The next day, while Elijah was at his real office, or maybe his other life, I could no longer tell. I went up to the attic. There, under layers of dust, I found my old art supplies. The brushes were stiff, the paints dry. But my sketches remained, proof of a talent I had abandoned for love, or what I thought was love. I also found letters, photographs, reminders of our shared life, our wedding, where Elijah swore before God and 200 guests to be faithful until death. Amara's birth, Elijah crying as he cut the umbilical cord, Jamal taking his first steps, Elijah filming it proudly with his favorite old camera. Real moments, genuine emotions, or so I had believed. When had the lie begun? My phone rang. It was Amara. "Mom, are you okay? You've been acting strange lately." My daughter, always so perceptive. "I'm fine, honey. Just a little tired. Are you sure? I can stop by if you want. The kids are asking for Grandma." The kids? My grandchildren. Elijah's official grandchildren. I wondered if they knew they had an uncle and little aunt in that blue house. Siblings they would never meet. The web of lies spread like a poisonous tapestry, touching innocent lives. "Sunday is better," I replied. "Dad will be home." A lie. On Sunday afternoons, Elijah played golf with clients. Now I knew it was likely family time at the Blue House. After hanging up, I returned to my investigation. The bank statements I had ignored for years suddenly made sense. Regular transfers to an account I didn't recognize. Purchases at stores we never frequented. Medical expenses that didn't match any of our illnesses. Elijah had been maintaining 2 homes, 2 complete lives. And I had been too trusting, too comfortable in my ignorance to notice. I found invoices for private academy tuition, music classes, and summer camps. Jalen played the violin. The baby, whose name I still didn't know, had been born at Emory University Hospital, the same one where our children were born. The audacity of the deception was almost admirable in its boldness. That afternoon, I did something I had never done before. I hired a private investigator, an experienced man recommended by a friend who had gone through a difficult divorce. "I need to know everything," I told him. "How long? How did it start? Everything." "Are you sure you want to know everything?" he asked, his voice heavy with experience in shattering lives with the truth. "Yes," I replied, though I wasn't sure of anything except that I couldn't keep living in this play. Elijah came home that night with flowers. Calla lilies, my favorite, or rather, the favorites of the Simone he thought I was. I no longer knew what I truly liked, what preferences were mine, and which ones I had adopted to please him. "You look beautiful," he said during dinner, taking my hand. The private investigator, a man named Agent Sterling with tired eyes that had seen too many secrets, came to the house a week later. Elijah was on one of his business trips. That is, playing happy family at the Blue House. Sterling laid a folder on my dining room table, the same table where we had celebrated 40 Christmases, 40 birthdays, and a lifetime of lies. "Mrs. Vance," he began, his voice professionally compassionate. "What I'm about to show you is not easy to digest. Are you sure you want to continue?" I nodded, my hands trembling as I opened the folder. The first page was a marriage certificate. Marcus Stanton had married Candace Stanton 12 years ago. A marriage, not an affair, not a mistress, another wife. "But this is illegal," I stammered, my mind struggling to process the information. "Technically, yes," Sterling replied. "He used false documents and has maintained an alternate identity for years. Elijah Vance and Marcus Stanton are the same person, but legally they exist as 2 different individuals. It's a professional job, ma'am. Your husband is no amateur at this." The following pages were worse. Photographs of Elijah and Candace's wedding. A small, intimate ceremony on a beach. She wore a simple white linen dress. He had that smile I thought I knew so well. There were birth certificates. Jalen Stanton, born 11 years ago, 3 months after Elijah had an emergency medical conference in San Diego. Sky Stanton, the baby, born 7 months ago, during a corporate leadership retreat. "There's more," Sterling continued, flipping to another section. Your husband owns properties under his alternate identity. The house where the other family lives, a condo in Miami, a cabin in the Smoky Mountains, all paid for in cash with no suspicious mortgages. My inheritance, my mother's inheritance, which she had left me 15 years ago. Money Elijah had wisely invested for our retirement. Now I knew where that money had truly gone. He had funded his other life with my dead mother's money. "How is this possible?" I whispered, the words barely escaping my mouth. "How can someone live like this for so long?" Sterling shrugged. "I've seen similar cases, though none this elaborate. Your husband manages 2 businesses, one under each name. The second is a consulting firm that justifies his additional income and absences. It's brilliant, in a twisted way." I kept reading. School records for Jalen, an excellent student and captain of his youth soccer team. Medical reports for Candace. Fertility treatments Elijah had paid for years before she could conceive. They had struggled to have children, just like us at first. The irony was venomous. "There's one more thing you should know," Sterling said, clearly uncomfortable. "Candace doesn't know about you. To her, her husband is a widower. The story he told her is that his first wife, Simone, died in a car accident 15 years ago. I was dead. In Elijah's narrative for his other family, I was dead. He had metaphorically killed his wife so he could have another. I wondered if he ever thought of the dead wife, sleeping in another house, in another life, while he made love to Candace. Is there anything about why?" I asked, needing to understand the motivation behind such an elaborate deception. Sterling pulled out another file. "I discreetly interviewed acquaintances from both circles. Apparently, your husband met Candace when she was his physical therapist after his knee surgery." The knee surgery. I remembered those months perfectly. Elijah complaining of pain, going to therapy 3 times a week, slowly recovering. I had been busy caring for my sick mother then, trusting him to follow his treatment alone. He had planted the seeds of his other life while I held my dying mother's hand. Candace became pregnant shortly after. "Based on the dates," Sterling continued, "it seems your husband decided to maintain both lives instead of choosing. Maybe because of the children, maybe because of the finances, maybe because he could. The financial documents suggested he handled nearly $3 million in assets between both identities. $3 million, money I had inherited, earned, stolen, perhaps to maintain his empire of lies." I stood up abruptly, running to the bathroom where I vomited until there was nothing left but bile. Sterling waited patiently, professionally, until I returned. "What do you want to do with this information?" he asked. "I need time to think. Can you get me more information about his finances? Everything. Every account, every investment, every single cent. Of course. Are you considering a divorce?" "I'm considering justice," I replied, surprised by the coldness in my voice. For the next 3 days, I stayed in a hotel, telling Elijah I was visiting my sister in Chicago. I needed space, to think, to plan, to decide who Simone would be after this. In the solitude of that impersonal room, with Sterling's folders spread across the bed like evidence of a crime, I made the decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to be a victim. I wasn't going to cry silently while Elijah continued living his double life. I wasn't going to fade away with a quiet divorce that let him keep his perfect facade. I was going to dismantle the house of cards he had built, but with a surgeon's precision, not a scorned wife's fury. First, I needed allies. I called my son, Jamal, a corporate law attorney. "Son, I need your professional help with something delicate. Can you come to the Marriott Marquis downtown, room 512? He arrived within an hour, visibly worried. "Mom, what's wrong? Why are you in a hotel?" I showed him everything. I watched his face shift from confusion to disbelief, then harden into a cold, focused rage, the same rage that burned in me. "I'm going to destroy him," he said finally, his voice low and dangerous. "Bigamy is a felony, fraud, tax evasion, document forgery. I stopped him. I don't want him in prison. I want something worse. I want him to lose everything he values and live long enough to watch it happen. Jamal looked at me with a mix of respect and astonishment. What do you have in mind? I laid out my plan. It was complex. It required patience, deception, and a cruelty I didn't know I possessed. Jamal listened, occasionally offering legal refinements to make it airtight. We'll need Amara too, he said. She handles public relations for that big firm. She'll know how to manage the media when this blows up. Amara's reaction was different. She cried for an hour, then raged, then cried again. How could he? She kept repeating. How could he do this to us? But when the storm passed, her professional composure returned. We need to control the narrative, she said. When this comes out, and it will, Dad has to be the undisputed villain. I also needed an unexpected ally. Elijah's sister, Patricia. We had always been close. When I told her everything, she listened in silence, then exhaled heavily. I always knew something wasn't right, she said. The trips, the excuses, the way he mixed up details. I thought it was an affair. Never this. I need access to your mother's safe deposit box, I told her. Patricia was the executor of my mother-in-law's will. Elijah kept important documents there. Patricia hesitated, then said softly, Mom always loved you more than him. She used to say you were too good for Elijah. You'll have what you need. The plan took shape over the next few weeks. I hired another investigator. This one an expert in financial fraud. He discovered that Elijah had been evading taxes for years, using his dual identity to conceal income. A forensic accountant traced every transaction, building a case that would make the IRS tremble. Jamal prepared the legal groundwork, not for a divorce yet, but to freeze assets at the perfect moment. Amara worked her network, quietly alerting media contacts to a developing story. Prominent businessmen living a double life for over a decade. Meanwhile, I returned home to play my part as the devoted wife. Elijah suspected nothing. Why would he? His arrogance had made him careless. He kissed me each morning, called every afternoon, and at night I met him with an affection that astonished him. One evening, over dinner, he spoke of the future. I've been thinking about retirement, he said. Maybe in a few years we could travel, see the world like we always wanted. That sounds wonderful, I replied, refilling his wine. Where would you like to go first? Italy, maybe, or Greece? Somewhere with history and art. You love art? The art I gave up for you. I thought, smiling. It would be perfect, I said. He went on talking about our dreams, unaware I was counting the days until his ruin. The next 6 weeks were a masterpiece of performance. I became the perfect wife again. I cooked his favorite meals. I waited up for him, no matter how late he came home. I initiated intimacy with a warmth that made him believe he had won me back. I was the Simone of our honeymoon, but this time with a darker purpose. You're radiant lately, he said one morning, hugging me from behind as I made coffee. What's changed? I decided to value what we have, I replied smoothly. Life is short, don't you think? Meanwhile, every part of the plan moved like clockwork. Jamal discovered that Elijah's consulting firm, under the name Marcus Stanton, had secured multiple government contracts using insider information from his Elijah Vance persona. It was large-scale corporate fraud. Amara seeded the first whispers online, anonymous accounts raising subtle questions about the mysterious Marcus Stanton and his uncanny resemblance to Elijah Vance. Nothing explicit, just enough to spark curiosity. Then the financial investigator found the jackpot, a Cayman Islands account with $5 million. Money Elijah had been siphoning for years. Our money, my mother's inheritance, the proceeds from our joint investments, all hidden, perhaps for his eventual escape. But the masterstroke came from Patricia. Inside her mother's safe deposit box, she found the real will of my father-in-law. Not the forged version Elijah had filed. In the original, everything was left to a trust for the grandchildren, with me, Simone, named as administrator. Elijah had forged documents to inherit everything himself. Another federal crime. One afternoon, I followed Elijah to the Blue House. This time, I didn't hide. I parked right in front and waited. I watched him step out of the car. Not like the Elijah I knew. This man moved differently, more relaxed, somehow younger. Jalen ran into his arms, and Elijah lifted him, spinning him in the air while the boy laughed. Candace came out carrying the baby, and the scene was so domestic, so perfect, that I finally understood. Elijah wasn't acting here. This was his real life. I was the obligation, the youthful mistake he couldn't erase. This family was what he truly wanted. The knowledge didn't hurt as I expected. Instead, it gave me clarity. I wasn't destroying a marriage. I was exposing a lie. It wasn't revenge. It was justice. That night, Elijah came home late, smelling faintly of baby powder, with a smudge of marinara sauce on his sleeve, probably from dinner with his other family. "Sorry I'm late," he said, kissing me distractedly. The meeting ran long. "No problem," I replied, noticing a child's drawing peeking from his briefcase. "Did you eat?" "Grabbed something at the office." He lied easily. "But I'd love a glass of wine with you." We sat on the sofa, him talking about his fictional day while I nodded at all the right moments. At one point, he rested his head in my lap, an intimate gesture from our early years. "Are you happy, Simone?" he asked suddenly, catching me off guard. "Why do you ask?" "I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I've lost something, that I took a wrong turn somewhere, and I can't find my way back." It was the most honest he had been in years, and for a fleeting moment, I almost felt pity for him. Almost. "We all make choices," I said, stroking his hair. "The important thing is living with the consequences." "I guess you're right," he sighed, closing his eyes. The next day, Jamal called. "Everything's ready. Documents are prepared. Amara's contacts are waiting. The IRS has been anonymously notified. We're just waiting for your signal." I decided on Friday, during our anniversary dinner. Our 40th anniversary was in 2 weeks. Elijah had booked the most exclusive restaurant in the city, inviting our closest friends and family. It would be public, devastating, and perfect. "Are you sure?" Jamal asked. "Once we start, there's no going back." I thought of Candace, unaware her husband was a bigamist, and of Jalen and little Sky, who would lose the father they knew. They were victims, too, but I couldn't save them without destroying myself. "I'm sure," I confirmed. 40 years of lies would end on Friday. The restaurant, the Gilded Lyre, shimmered like a jewel against the city night. Elijah had reserved the entire main hall, an extravagant gesture even for him. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light over Egyptian linen tablecloths. Each table was adorned with white orchids and red roses, the colors of my wedding bouquet 40 years ago. A string quartet played, "Our Love Is Here to Stay," the song from our first dance. Every detail had been meticulously planned, a public masterpiece of romance concealing private rot. I wore the blood-red dress I had bought specifically for this night. The daring design hugged my figure, with a neckline Elijah would have once considered scandalous. My hair was styled in an elegant updo, revealing the diamond necklace my mother had left me, the one Elijah didn't know I had retrieved from the safe deposit box. My makeup was dramatic. Red lipstick, smoky eyes, a mask of war disguised as glamour. Every guest who arrived commented on how radiant I looked, never suspecting my glow was that of a freshly sharpened blade. Elijah wore his Italian tailor-made navy blue suit, the one for life's most important occasions, the silk tie I had given him for our 30th anniversary. His gold cufflinks, his father's inheritance, sparkled as he moved to greet guests. He had gone to the barber that afternoon, silver hair perfectly trimmed, beard neatly sculpted. He looked exactly as he wanted the world to see. A successful man celebrating a life of love and fidelity. "You are absolutely spectacular," he whispered, helping me into my chair at the head table. His hand brushed my bare shoulder. A public intimacy. "I can't believe you still take my breath away after all these years. You are the most beautiful woman in the room. And you, the biggest liar," I thought. But my smile was perfect, honed over weeks of practice in front of the mirror. "You're not so bad yourself, my love," I replied, the term of endearment tasting like acid on my tongue. The 50 guests had been carefully selected. Business partners who needed to witness his downfall, society friends who would spread the scandal like wildfire, and family who deserved to know the truth. They were strategically placed, Jamal and his wife Elena near the improvised stage, ready to intervene. Amara and her fiancé, David, had a table with a perfect view of the projection screen. Patricia was strategically positioned near the exit, just in case Elijah tried to run. Dinner began with oysters, something Elijah despised but had ordered because he knew they were my favorite. Another public display of devotion. The conversation flowed alongside the French champagne, Dom Perignon, from the year of our wedding. A detail that cost a fortune, and which Elijah had mentioned at least 3 times. "Elijah has always been the perfect husband," commented Brenda Jenkins, wife of Elijah's main business partner, as she savored her lobster. "Simone, you are so fortunate." "You have no idea," I replied, my smile unwavering. Elijah, sitting beside me, squeezed my hand under the table, an action others took as an expression of love, but I recognized it as ownership. At 9:30, as the Belgian chocolate desserts were served, Elijah stood up, tapping his glass with a knife. The quartet stopped playing, and conversation hushed. All eyes turned to him. "Dear friends, family," he began, his voice rich and deep, the same voice that had once seduced me 4 decades ago. 40 years ago, in a small bookstore downtown, I met a woman who would change my life. Simone became not only my wife, but my best friend, my confidant, my partner in every adventure. I watched as some women discreetly dabbed their tears. Brenda sighed romantically, while the men nodded approvingly. It was a flawless performance. These years haven't always been easy. Elijah continued, his voice trembling with feigned, or perhaps perversely real, emotion. We faced loss, challenges, moments of doubt. But Simone, my Simone, has been my anchor, my safe harbor in every storm, the light that guides me home every night. The irony was so bitter I had to sip my water to avoid choking. Every night he was supposedly guided home. He had chosen another direction, another home, another woman. That's when Elijah pulled a blue velvet box from his pocket. "I want to renew my vows. Right here in front of all of you," he announced. He opened the box, revealing an eternity diamond band. "Simone, will you do me the honor of continuing to be my wife for another 40 years? Applause erupted. Someone shouted, "Bravo!" Phone cameras flashed. It was the perfect moment, the romantic climax of the evening. I stood slowly, accepting his kiss before the ovation, the ring heavy and cold on my finger. "My turn," I announced as the applause died down, my voice clear as the crystal I was about to shatter. 40 years is a long time," I began. "Time enough to know every secret, every truth, every lie about a person. Or so one would think." Elijah smiled, his hand still on my waist, completely oblivious to the chasm opening beneath his feet. "I've prepared something very special for tonight," I continued, pulling my phone from my purse. Jamal had already connected the restaurant's audio and projection system to my device, an arrangement that had cost a generous tip to the technical staff. A gift, not just for my husband, but for all of you. Because ruby anniversaries, dear friends, require absolute transparency. Like the purest crystal. I pressed play. Elijah's voice filled the room, clear and unmistakable. Candace, my love, I'm heading home now. Yeah, I know Jalen has his game tomorrow at 8, don't worry. I told Simone I have a conference all weekend. She never suspects a thing. Trust me, after so many years, she's blindly trusting. It's almost pathetic how easy it is. The silence that followed was deafening, the kind that precedes an explosion. Elijah's champagne glass fell from his hand, shattering against the marble floor, the pieces glinting like crystal tears. That's not... He stammered, his face going from tan to white to gray in seconds. Oh, but wait. I interrupted, my voice now sharp as the broken glass at his feet. There's so much more. The screen flickered to life, showing photographs I had carefully prepared. Elijah and Candace at their beach wedding. Him in a white linen suit I had never seen. The birth certificate for Jalen Vance, with Marcus Stanton listed as the father. Christmas family photos from the last 10 years. Elijah smiling with his other family in front of a tree I had never decorated. Sky's ultrasound, with a dedication to the best dad in the world. Love, Candace! Gasps rippled through the room, growing louder with each revelation. Brenda Jenkins had gone pale, her hand over her mouth. Elijah's partner, Devin Harris, stared at the images with a mixture of horror and fury, likely calculating the damage to the firm's reputation. Patricia buried her face in her hands, sobbing silently. 40 years, I said, walking slowly around Elijah, who remained frozen like a statue. 40 years living with a bigamist, a pathological liar, a criminal. Yes, dear friends, a criminal. Bigamy is a felony punishable by prison time. Simone, please. Elijah finally found his voice, stepping toward me with outstretched hands. We can talk about this privately. Don't do this. Jamal stood up, positioning himself between Elijah and me. Don't come near my mother, he said, his voice lethal and controlled. And before you consider running, you should know the IRS already has copies of all your financial statements, including that Cayman account where you hid $5 million. The prosecutor has the fraudulent contracts you signed, using your fake identity. Amara took the microphone the quartet had abandoned. To our dear guests, I deeply regret that you are witnessing this, but after 40 years of public deception, we felt the truth also needed to be public. My father not only betrayed my mother, but he betrayed us all. This is insane. Elijah spun around, seeking support among the guests, but they all backed away as if he were contagious. Devin, you've known me for 20 years. You know I wouldn't... Wouldn't what? Devin stood up, his face a mask of disgust. That you're not capable of this? Apparently, I didn't know you at all. I pulled the envelope from my purse, the divorce papers Jamal had prepared. You have 2 choices, Elijah. Sign these documents now, relinquishing all claims to our communal assets. Or this goes to a public trial and you end up in federal prison for bigamy, tax fraud, and document forgery. Patricia stood up, her voice trembling but firm. Elijah, you should also know that I found Dad's real will. The one you forged is with the authorities. Mom always knew something wasn't right with you. It was the final blow. Elijah slumped into the chair, the powerful man reduced to rubble. With trembling hands, he took the pen I offered him. As he signed, tears fell onto the documents, staining his name. His final surrender. The events following the anniversary dinner unfolded with devastating precision, like perfectly aligned dominoes. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the balcony of the hotel suite where I had taken refuge, watching the city lights flicker while my phone vibrated incessantly with calls and messages I wouldn't answer. The red dress still clung to my body like battle armor. The smeared makeup traced maps of pain across my face. At 6 kang in the morning, Jamal arrived with coffee and his laptop. The divorce papers are processed. Dad signed them last night. We have witnesses. It's irrevocable. We also froze the joint accounts an hour ago. His efficiency was ruthless, the lawyer taking control where the son might have faltered. At 7 Hoi, Amara arrived with her crisis public relations team. 3 young women armed with tablets and determined expressions, transforming my suite into a command center. "The press embargo lifts in 2 hours," Amara announced, professionalism barely masking the fury underneath. "We have exclusives with 3 major newspapers and 2 national television channels. The hashtag is already trending. By noon, the entire country will know who Elijah Vance really is." At exactly 9 Farah, the story exploded. Prominent businessman, living a double life. Bigamy. Fraud. 12 years of deception. Headlines screamed across every screen. Within minutes, Bigamist of the Year became a worldwide trend. The photos I had provided, Elijah with both families, went viral. Cruel but creative memes spread like mushrooms after rain. The hotel phone rang. It was the front desk. "Mrs. Vance, there are reporters in the lobby requesting statements." "Tell them my lawyer will give a press conference at 2:00, I replied, my voice surprisingly firm. The 11-5. Elijah's company had issued a statement. "Effective immediately. Elijah Vance has been suspended from all duties pending an internal investigation into severe ethical violations and possible corporate fraud. Devon Harris, his partner, was blunt in an interview. We are fully cooperating with the authorities. If the allegations are true, Elijah Vance not only betrayed his family, but also the trust of his partners, employees, and clients." At 3:47 p.m., my phone rang. An unknown number. It was Candace. Her voice sounded like shattered glass, each word fragmented and cutting. "Is it true?" she asked without preamble. "You are Simone Vance, his first and only legal wife," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "No cruelty, but no comfort. I never died, Candace. He killed me metaphorically so he could have you. I'm sorry. You are a victim, too." "The children," she whispered, her voice breaking into sobs. "My God, the children! Jalin adored his father. The baby, what do I tell them? How do I explain that their entire life is a lie? I don't know," I admitted. "There are no words to heal those wounds. But children are resilient. With help, therapy, and real love, they will heal." "Did you know about us?" she asked. "How long did you know?" 2 months, I answered. 2 months of truth. After 40 years of lies. "I'm going to lose everything," she whispered. "The house is in his name. The accounts, everything. I have nothing of my own. I quit my job when Jalin was born, because he insisted." It was another level of Elijah's cruelty, keeping Candace completely dependent. "Give me your information," I found myself saying. "My lawyer will contact you. You are not responsible for Elijah's crimes. We will make sure you and the children are financially protected." "Why?" she asked, genuinely confused. "Because destroying Elijah doesn't mean destroying 2 innocent children," I replied. "They didn't ask to be born into a lie." The next day, the IRS arrived like a biblical plague. Federal agents appeared at Elijah's office, our house, and the Blue House. Boxes of documents were seized, along with computers and hard drives. Even his collection of luxury watches was catalogued and embargoed. The investigation revealed a labyrinth of tax evasion dating back 15 years. Offshore accounts, shell companies, fake invoices. A scheme so elaborate, it required a team of 20 forensic accountants to fully unravel. Jamal handled the legal side with surgical precision and an executioner's coldness. Using the state's bigamy laws, which automatically nullified any financial claim by a bigamous spouse, he voided all of Elijah's rights to our joint properties. The $2 million house, the 3 investment properties, the stock portfolio, everything passed exclusively into my name. "We also recovered this," Jamal said a week later, handing me a check, $3.7 million from the Cayman account. The rest was so tangled in his shell companies it would take years to recover, if at all. Patricia visited that afternoon. She looked 10 years older, her face marked by family shame. "Mom always knew something was wrong with Elijah," she confessed, sinking onto my hotel sofa. Before she died, she told me, "Take care of Simone when the truth comes out." I think she somehow knew. "How is he?" I asked, hating myself for caring. "Destroyed," Patricia replied bluntly. "Candace threw him out of the house. No hotel in the city will accept his reservation. His face is on all the news. He's living in an extended stay on the highway, paying cash with what little isn't frozen. He tried contacting some friends, but they all hung up. He's a pariah, Simone. A man without a country." 3 weeks after the scandal, I was called to testify before the grand jury. The room was packed, every seat filled with people eager to hear the story firsthand. I wore a simple black suit, no jewelry except for my original wedding ring, a reminder of the woman I once was. For 4 hours, I recounted everything, every lie, every discovery, every piece of evidence. The jurors' expressions ranged from sympathy to horror. The prosecutor, a young yet brilliant man named Aaron Mitchell, was meticulous. "Mrs. Vance, at any point during these 12 years, did you suspect your husband's infidelity?" he asked. "There were moments," I admitted. "Small inconsistencies, strange absences. But Elijah was a master manipulator. Every time I got close to the truth, he created an explanation so elaborate, so credible, that I felt guilty for doubting." "And what made you discover the truth?" I paused before answering, feeling the weight of the years behind me. At first, denial. Then came pain. A pain so deep I thought it might break me in two. After that, anger. Not hot but cold. Calculated. And finally, determination. Determination that 40 years of lies would not define the rest of my life. The grand jury's verdict was unanimous. Formal indictment for bigamy, tax fraud, document forgery, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Elijah faced up to 20 years in prison. A month later, Elijah called me from the county jail, where he was awaiting trial. His voice was unrecognizable. Broken, aged. "Why, Simone? Why didn't you give me a chance to explain in private?" "Explain what, Elijah?" "How you accidentally stumbled into another life for 12 years. How you mistakenly married another woman. How you unintentionally had 2 more children." "It wasn't like that. Candace got pregnant. I couldn't abandon her. But you could abandon me. Every day for 12 years you abandoned me. I loved you, Simone. I always loved you." "No," I replied with a clarity that surprised me. "You loved the idea of me, the perfect wife in your perfectly compartmentalized life. But you never loved the real me, the woman with her own dreams and desires. You turned me into a character in your elaborate fiction. The children," his voice cracked. "My other kids, what will happen to them?" "Candace and I have reached an agreement," I said. "They will receive financial support from the recovered assets. They won't suffer economically for your crimes. You and Candace are talking. The victims of the same criminal sometimes find comfort in mutual understanding. Simone, please. I just want—" "No, Elijah," I interrupted. "You don't have the right to want anything from me. You had 40 years of my life. You won't have another second." I hung up. It was the last time I would ever hear his voice. 2 years passed since that anniversary dinner that changed everything. This morning, as I made coffee in my new condo kitchen overlooking the Atlanta rooftops, with the sun streaming through the windows that I had chosen all by myself, I received a notification on my phone. Elijah had been released on good behavior. I felt nothing. No fear, no anger, not even curiosity. The man who had been my husband was now a stranger. Just a character in a story that happened to another Simone, one who no longer existed. My art exhibition opened last month. Portraits of an Invented Life. Each piece told part of my story. The blind wife, the woman awakening, the architect of her own liberation. The reviews were extraordinary, but more importantly, every brushstroke had been therapy. Every color was a small victory over the past. At the opening, a man approached me. He was a widower, a retired literature professor with kind eyes and a genuine laugh. "Your work moves me," he said. There is so much pain, but so much hope, too. We had coffee afterward, then dinner. No rush, no expectations. Just two people who understood that life can begin again at any age. Jamal called me yesterday. Dad tried to contact me. He said, "Does he want to reunite with the family?" I asked, already knowing the answer. I told him, "His family is us. For 40 years he chose another. Now he has to live with that choice. My son, my fierce protector." Amara was less diplomatic. She simply blocked his number. Patricia visits me sometimes. She tells me Elijah lives alone in a one-bedroom apartment now. He works as a bookkeeper for a small firm that doesn't run background checks. Candace won't allow him to see the children until they are older and can decide for themselves. It's a gray, monotonous existence, honest for the first time in his life. But this story isn't about Elijah. It never really was. It's about Simone, about me, about the woman who emerged from the ashes of a false life to build a real one. Yesterday I found my old diary from the time before Elijah. The girl who wrote those pages dreamed of Paris, of painting in Montmartre, of passion. At 64 years old, I'm finally giving that girl what she deserves. Next month I fly to Paris alone, with my brushes and a light suitcase. It's not the scholarship I rejected 4 decades ago, but it's my money, my decision, my life. I'll rent a small studio near the Seine. I'll paint until my hands hurt. I'll drink cheap wine with artists who know nothing of my history. While packing, I find the photo from our wedding. Elijah and me, young, radiant, ignorant of the future. I don't rip it up. I don't burn it. I simply place it in a box labeled fiction because that's what it was. A beautiful, terrible fiction. My phone rings. It's Michael. That's the literature professor's name. And it no longer makes me flinch. "Ready for our tango class?" he asks. "Yes," I reply. I'm learning tango and Italian and sculpting and wine tasting. Something new every day. Every experience is an affirmation that life doesn't end with betrayal. It's not the end. It's a new beginning. "Give me 10 minutes. I reply, applying the red lipstick Elijah once said was too bold for my age. Everything is bold now. Every day is an act of bravery. Every decision is a declaration of independence. Before I leave, I look at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back has wrinkles that tell stories. Gray hairs she doesn't hide. Eyes that have seen too much but still shine with hope. She is beautiful, not despite her age and history, but because of them. "Hello, Simone," I say to my reflection. "It's good to finally meet you." And then, there's one final twist to this story. One I didn't see coming. This morning, while organizing papers for my trip, I found an envelope Agent Sterling had left for me. "Open it only when you're ready," he had said. Inside was a letter from my mother, written shortly before she died. A letter Elijah had intercepted and hidden. "My dearest Simone," it read, "if you are reading this, it is because you have finally set yourself free. I always knew the truth about Elijah. I followed him once. I saw the other woman. But you were so fragile after losing that pregnancy, so dependent on him that I feared the truth would destroy you. I was a coward. I am sorry. In compensation, I have left another account, one Elijah does not know about, just for you. The key is where we always hid treasures when you were a child. The old oak tree in my childhood garden. Live, my love. Live truly this time." I rushed to the house, now sold, but the new owners allowed me to search. Buried among the roots of the old oak tree, I found a metal box. Inside were documents for a Swiss account, with enough money to live 100 lives. My mother had given me freedom posthumously. Financial freedom, but more than that, emotional freedom. She knew someone had known the truth and had chosen to protect me until I was strong enough to protect myself. I didn't need the money anymore, but I would use it for a women's shelter, for art scholarships, for all the Simones trapped in gilded cages. My story ends where it began, with a discovery, a revelation, A truth that changes everything. But this time, the truth doesn't destroy. It liberates. And I, Simone Vance, at 64 years old, am finally free.